2021, baby, let's go. 2020 was the year of announcements, so 2021 is the year they are coming out. I am ready. God of War Ragnar. Oh, Gran Turismo 7 is got. Doesn't matter. I don't even like that game. Gotham Knights is going to be so good. You're playing as Batgirl and Robin in stupid games. Stupid concept. Doesn't look good. Horizon Forbidden West. They already said 2021. This game looks completely done. Just got to polish it up. And yep, I knew it was going to be 2022 all along. Okay, so maybe 2021 didn't shake out completely like we expected, and even though there wasn't a clear game of the year, it was still a damn good year. It was one of those jack of all trades, masters of none type of year. So if you like any type of video games, there's a chance you had something for you in 2021. Because of the sheer amount of games, I missed a few. First off, RE8. And to set the stage, I did not like Resident Evil 7 at all. I hated that game. I really dislike when horror games all of a sudden turn into shooters at the end, and the mechanics and the gameplay just don't support this fast-paced FPS style of the game, and that was a huge issue I had with RE7. It looks like RE8 may fix that with some cleaned up gameplay and a really tall lady, but too little too late. You also have Deathloop, which looks good, but I'm a little lukewarm on stealth games. I think it's just the impatient gamer in me. I don't know, I just don't want to wait around, and I certainly don't want to pay $70 to do that. Now, I said I missed some games, but at the same time, I was able to play a couple. So yeah, it looks like we have a lot to cover. So let's talk the video game Swiss Army knife that was 2021. I was all over the place this year. I started off exploring my newfound love for turn-based strategy games, and what better way to foster that love than with Fire Emblem Awakening and XCOM 2. I had such a blast with Awakening. The beautiful sprite work, the constant progression, and just building up those social stats. The coolest part about Awakening is when they start bringing in your future kids. Now that's when it gets fun as hell. The game naturally pushes you to make your little families all fight next to each other so you can get stat boosts. So at the end of the game, you just have these god tier parents and children just running roughshod over the battlefield. Then you have XCOM 2. I never played this game, but the minute I booted it up, you could see exactly how many games took inspiration from it. The ability to customize characters to be your stupid ass real life friends, the Overwatch ability, using sprint actions to get across the battlefield, all while you had this little base management side game going on. Oh, and the War of the Chosen expansion. They just add these dudes into your battles and it immediately makes you just reevaluate everything. XCOM 2 had so many cool and addicting gameplay mechanics going forward. So be warned, if you start this game, be prepared to stay up till like 1 a.m. every morning mindlessly flying this stupid ship around. Of course, after playing these turn-based strategy games, there was really only one option. Play Fire Emblem Three Houses for the 5th time. Finally got around to playing Hades, which could have easily been in my top 5 of last year. This game doesn't do anything wrong. Gameplay, check. Music, check. Story, check. Cheeky side characters?
Good thing I'm able to stay occupied with intellectual pursuits.
Check. This year I made the decision to tank my mental health and play Valorant, and somehow I actually had a phenomenal time. That's mainly because there were no good FPSs this year for the first 11 months. Valorant is such a good change of pace of what I'm used to with FPSs. It's all about being sneaky, grabbing the right angle, not running and gunning, and then spending $22 on a gun skin. Additionally, Back 4 Blood got my attention, just taking the Left 4 Dead formula and modernizing it. I like what they were doing with the cards and stuff of that nature, just to put a fresh twist on this zombie PvE genre. I will definitely revisit this guy when I'm not, Forza Horizon released its 5th game that everyone seemed to love, but for me it just ended up being more Forza Horizon. Not necessarily a bad thing, but if they were expecting to keep me playing past the first 2 weeks, it's just not gonna work out. Similar to Kena Bridge of Spirits, that game did a lot of things okay and nothing great. It had a Soulsborne element with wonky parries, had Zelda puzzles with sluggish controls. I was surprised this one didn't stick with me considering how hyped I was early on, though this game actually did one thing great, and that was its art style. Now this is one pretty ass game. Gave Inscription a try, and really ended up just wishing the entire game was the first third. And considering they're releasing a DLC for exactly that, I assume I'm not alone in that thinking. Popped a little Stardew Valley co-op, had a great time. Played through Spiritfarer on the recommendation of some big-time YouTube channel and melted into an absolute puddle of emotion. Then, Capcom. Capcom released its best game of the year with Monster Hunter Rise. This game is a perfect example of just tightening the screws on your predecessor. My biggest gripe with Monster Hunter World is that the game just felt so sluggish. I'm slowly climbing walls, had these long looping swings, tracking monsters by picking up their poop and smelling it. All of this made the game feel a little bit like a slog, whereas Monster Hunter Rise realized everyone's favorite piece of Monster Hunter is the part where you fight the monster. They basically spawn you in, and the map is a manageable size, and they don't go really overboard in verticality. You call in this dog who's literally able to drift around like a Tokyo Drift style and gain speed, so you are immediately in the fight. Then the fight itself, you're swinging all over the place with this little wire bug, and no matter what big old weapon you're bringing to the fight, you still feel like a nimble monster hunting ninja. So then you can quickly get back to town and stare at this massive tree of armor and weapons while bobbing your head to that banger hub theme. Another big-time sequel was Shin Megami Tensei 5. Crazy name, great-ass game. If you like any Persona game, then you will like SMT5, because it's almost identical combat system. It doesn't have as much style as Persona, but it still has you rocking out to this organ in hell. So yeah, we'll call it even. This all takes place in these big, sprawling areas where you're going around snatching up demons to add to your party, getting currency to grant you good passive abilities. It's an incredibly engaging gameplay experience. And like the Persona games, it has a lot of systems, but it's never overwhelming. You're constantly just leveling up, exploring, fusing demons, and just watching all these numbers go up, all while you're kicking ass in this really cool open world that has this kind of weird artistic decision just to make it seem like you always have chlorine in your eyes. And all this ties together into one of the most incredibly nonsensical stories I have ever seen in my life. I never thought I'd say this, but this game may be too anime. And I played 70 hours of Xenoblade 2. Then you have 2 remasters of some god tier games. First up, Diablo 2 Resurrected. If you have never played D2, then I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure you're gonna hate this game. It definitely shows its age even with its nice uptuned graphics. But I come from a life where my most played game of all time is Diablo 2. Diablo 2 Resurrected is the original game just made beautiful. Some good animations, fluid 60 FPS, a nice old wide screen, and a sneaky underrated soundtrack. D2 is one of the original grindfests. You're laying hours upon hours just to hope you get one single item that can finally bring your build together. If Diablo 3's grind was a mile-long run, then Diablo 2's is a marathon across the desert with no water. But it's that aspect that makes this game so damn satisfying. Because when you get that drop you need, there's no better feeling in a game. Alright, now bring out my boy. The Mass Effect trilogy is perhaps the greatest video game trilogy of all time. It was such a groundbreaking series that showed you that your choices matter and had incredibly long-lasting implications. The scope of this trilogy is incredibly impressive. I'm fairly certain nothing will ever top this with all these different branching storylines, and any dev who gives it a try, just good luck. For example, if you're in Mass Effect 1 and Rex dies, well guess what? That dude is staying dead. Like he is dead. And if you saved him, you're playing through the series, seeing Rex and thinking, how in the hell would this game work if Rex died? That's the magic of Mass Effect. It makes your story feel like it's uniquely yours, like you have your own little pocket of space where you're living out your Shepard story. There are characters that matter to you and you develop true connections with, which is the shining achievement of that Mass Effect series. So I'm incredibly glad it got the upgrade it deserves. All of this served up in a single package with all the DLC for you to enjoy and experience your Shepard story as it was intended. And it all pays off in Mass Effect 3, which is one of my favorite games of all time. I know that's like a little bit of a hot take, but Mass Effect 3 is just payoff after payoff after payoff after payoff. The stakes feel so high, and each piece of the game is in these monstrous, beautiful set pieces. You're doing all this with characters you've been with the entire trilogy, and you have these just unbreakable connections. Each of them have their own stories and are incredibly unique and have natural feeling character arcs. You're given nice, intimate moments with each of them. And it's during those times, the quiet bits in between those giant set pieces, that I realize how grateful I am for this masterpiece. And now, our last stop before our top 5 is the DLC to my 2020 Game of the Year, Final Fantasy Remake Intergrade Intermission. 2021 wasn't the greatest on naming conventions, but this game was great on everything else. Intermission is a quick side story following Yuffie, the happy-go-lucky Wu-Tai material collector. This game maintains its FF7 DNA while introducing you to a new, fun, endearing character. Once again, it's such a swaggy game. Yuffie bouncing around like a superhero and teaming up with Sonon to pull off these beautiful combo attacks. But the thing about Intermission that really stuck out is this game never really tried to take itself too seriously. You're playing goofy board games, picking up Happy Turtle posters, exchanging cheesy dialogue, all while controlling dorky Yuffie. And she was such a fun character to control, both from a gameplay and personality perspective. She has this dynamic combat style that involves you mixing together magic and physical combat, pull off some sensational looking combos. I think the combat system in Intermission is a good glance forward into what FF7 Remake Part 2 is going to be like, adding in an extra character who you don't outright control, but still is very engaged in the fights. And outside of combat, Yuffie is so charming and likable like every other FF7 character. Running around dressed like a Moogle for no reason is so cool when you contrast it to her badass, ferocious fighting style. Once again, FF7 has nailed character design perfectly. Then from a music standpoint, there's this incredibly diverse soundtrack that seems to have a song queued up for every situation. Like, how in the hell is this song
gonna get fully wrecked at the Happy Turtle?
And this song in the same game, much less played within like 40 minutes of one another. There's a huge chase that just set to like Cowboy Bebop jazz, because why the hell not? The craziest thing is that this is just a little 3-hour DLC, but worth every penny of $20. I think it would be cheating throwing this in my top 5 because it's a DLC. But if you've played FF7 Remake or just want to jump in, now is the time. Because if they can keep this rolling, this is really setting up to be one of the best video game series of all time. Alright, I think we've covered everything, so let's jump into a nice, contentious top 5 video games of 2021. Another calendar year, another Persona game in my top 5. Now I'll be straight up, this is probably the most selfish pick for me on this list. I think if you don't like Persona or Musou games, then you're definitely not going to like this game. But if you happen to like those things, you're in the right place. Persona 5 Strikers is such a cool experiment for a video game. What if we make a direct sequel to a beloved video game and just completely change the genre? Will it work? Oh hell yeah, it works. I don't know how they pulled it off, but Strikers feels like a Persona game with just a little twist on how they commit the entire gameplay experience. You still have Persona fusions, you still have a battle system around exploiting weaknesses, you still have phenomenal characters, and you still have the staples of Persona progression. I think the biggest hole in this game is there's not really any type of social stat progression, but they still make up for it by giving all your characters ample screen time, and they each kind of have their own time to shine. Strikers was able to strike that balance as efficiently as they could, especially considering this game is no longer a turn-based, time-based RPG. The combat of Strikers is satisfying and frantic, just charging into dudes and beating the stuffing out of them with a bunch of different characters, and it also keeps some of the basics of Persona 5 intact. Your follow-up attack is now you switching to someone on the fly to perform a large combo. Your all-out attack is you bouncing all over these bad guys in a cloud of dust like an old-style cartoon. And then, of course, at the end, everybody strikes a sexy-ass pose. The style and sexiness of this game really oozes in these moments, so don't worry, that piece is never lost. The gameplay is all set to the cool backdrop of this fun premise of the Phantom Thieves going on a road trip together. They're out to steal hearts across Japan. A classic young adult road trip story with demon fusions. Overall, the story stays really tight, and in my opinion, never really falls apart or lulls at any point. It has a really good pacing that knows when to give you those dire stakes story beats, or when to let you just chill out at the cafe with your friends. And that's what I thought of Persona 5 Strikers. And do you really think I would let you get out of here without talking about the music? Do you think I am some type of idiot? What a fucking soundtrack on this video game. The Persona 5 flavor and attitude did not miss a beat in between games. You have the acid jazz going off, But now you have these more like electric guitars, just angry ass, blood boiling songs with my girl Lynn belting out notes like nobody's business. And what's really cool is this soundtrack actually wasn't done by the banger king Shoji Meguro. It was done by this dude, Atsushi Kitajo, who I now give the honor of Banger Prince. Man, what a damn good soundtrack and what a damn good game. Persona 5 Strikers comes in at number 5.
Yeah, 'cause we are all born free. Listen to that.
Sony's mascot is back, and they are back in the biggest and baddest way. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is such a technical marvel of a video game. A great flagship title for the PS5, and has properly earned the title System Seller. While this game is beautiful, the thing that really sold me on it was its incredibly over-the-top, no-holds-barred gameplay. Particle effects are flying everywhere, and you have like 20 different guns to choose from that each have their own unique, fun way of blowing dudes to smithereens, and as a whole, the combat just feels so damn good and just comfortable. Movements happen the way you want them to, guns fire with what feels like an appropriate range and power to them. Gunplay overall is nearly perfected in this game. While there are a couple aspects of this game that didn't stand out, like its story and some of the platforming bits, that doesn't really sink the game. I won't dwell too much on Ratchet & Clank, mainly because I spent a nice healthy 10 minutes dwelling on it earlier this year. Just know that this game seems to be universally loved, and that's due to it doing so many things great and almost nothing wrong. Except for a couple of nitpicks here and there, I think we're in good shape. In a year where some of the big games seem to divide people, Ratchet & Clank stood above the rest as just being a consensus good game. Ratchet & Clank is the complete package of what makes a great video game from beginning to end, and a well-deserved number 4 for my boys. Halo is back. Almost. Halo Infinite does a lot of things really well, but there's just a lot to say about this game as a whole. The multiplayer is swift and clean. They added in some of the modern FPS staples like sprinting and mantling, but they never overdo it. There's no overpowered loadouts, no equipment to grind for, it's just you and your skills. When you start climbing up the ranks, you start getting in matches that are going to have your knuckles ghost white. Even in games that you're just stomping on the other team, you still feel like they're neck and neck. The constant battle for control of key vantage points, angles, and power weapons is so perfectly balanced around some great map design. The sound design is satisfying but never distracting. Kill sounds are clean and clear. The sound of the shield recharging is the same nostalgic hum. The core gameplay of Halo Infinite is the best FPS experience in over 14 years since, Halo 3. Now, it isn't all sunshine and roses, and there are a lot of things holding Halo Infinite back from being my game of the year. And I'm not talking about this constant circle jerk around battle passes and progression and store pricing. I mean, if these motherfuckers ever saw the Valorant store, I'm pretty sure they would just pop out of existence from being so triggered. There are core, fundamental pieces of a great FPS multiplayer experience that Halo Infinite really stumbles on. Remember how I praised the map design? Well, it's probably not too hard considering you launch with literally 5 maps in a competitive rotation. Oh wait, now 4. 343 doesn't seem to be in any rush either to roll out content. There's been nothing but a drip feed of just cosmetics and a couple playlists, and this is months after launch. Outside of the content, there's also some really rough network desync issues. Melee sounds going off with no actual feedback or me dying behind a wall. I've also had a handful of really weird crashes during ranked matches, and considering the rank system is dog shit, getting a crash and being able to reconnect to ranked games can really break the even most ironclad of wills.
Oh, I'm in shambles! God! Fuck!
That said, because the gameplay of Halo Infinite is so solid, it's still, after all the critiques I've just listed, the best multiplayer on the market, and maybe the best feeling Halo of all time. Now, Halo wouldn't be Halo without its campaign, and Halo Infinite delivers a sensational campaign experience without co-op. Due out in May 2022. Maybe. We'll see. Halo's campaign sends you to the sprawling open world of Zeta Halo, a beautiful, lush environment that holds an ancient mystery for you to unravel. The gameplay is still good as hell, and now we've incorporated a grappling hook, which is probably like the best decision this game could have made. You're pulling in guns and fusion coils to bail you out at the last minute. You're swinging around the world like Spider-Man, just being an absolute menace to society. This game is so damn fun across the board. My only complaint is this open world in general just feels unnecessary. I still don't fully understand why they went the open world route. Maybe it was just to justify a $60 price tag, but Halo has always specialized in that close quarters corridor combat, which is still there, but it just isn't nearly as diverse as its predecessors. It really feels like this open world was built for the co-op experience. I can't wait to jump in with my friends in May because I think that's when the open world aspect will really shine. You know what is back? Halo music. Mario O'Donnell, get the fuck out of here. We got a trio of brilliant composers who have brought back Halo's sound to its roots, but are still keeping it fresh. The little Halo drums are back. They still have these amazing, beautiful reimaginings of classic Halo songs just splattered throughout your campaign. Halo music is king, and just as a reminder, in the video game music hierarchy, Halo is at the top with the big boys, and there's just no debate. The story of Halo Infinite is actually incredibly gripping. For the first time, I felt like Halo was about characters. This is actually the first time you get to see Chief show his human side. This 7-foot-something super soldier is finally showing some cracks in the emotional wall he's put up, and you begin to understand there's a person behind the helmet. This growth is due in large part to his supporting characters, Echo 216 and the Weapon, who are both just phenomenal. Echo 216 is a great straight man. His attitude is probably very similar to what an everyday person would think in this situation. He's always in absolute disbelief as to why in the hell they're still fighting, and he just wants to go home. Then to round out the trio, you have the Weapon, who is the perfect antithesis to everything Master Chief. Bubbly, joyful, clueless, and still capable. She brings together some of the best moments of this campaign with a compelling story arc of her own. This trio is what makes this campaign just a blast to experience from beginning to end.
Is everyone trying to kill you?
It kind of seems like it.
Oh, wait. You're being sarcastic. He's fun. I like him.
This game has its share of issues, but also has its share of promise. There's a framework here for some great potential strides for the Halo IP. After Infinite, I'm incredibly excited for what the future holds for this franchise. Since Halo Infinite seems to be a platform for this IP for the next 10 years, there's so much room to grow. If 343 can just clean up some of these larger issues, then Infinite has the potential to be an absolute all-timer and a return to form for a franchise that's beloved by myself and thousands of others.
But this wasn't the mission.
The missions change. They always do.
Are you sure?
19 years later, and in comes Metroid Dread. The fifth and potentially final game in the Metroid story arc goes out with a bang, and that's one of the best Metroidvanias of this generation. Dread wastes no time getting to the punch. Its story starts out incredibly straightforward, and the objective is clear. Get to the surface. The only issue is there's like 9 biomes with all these different enemies all over the place and a handful of killer robots trying to eat your face. Metroid Dread is an absolute masterclass in level design. There's a huge sense of freedom, but the game is subtly leading you in the right direction. They do this by eliminating one of my biggest Metroidvania gripes, which is senseless backtracking. Sure, you backtrack in Dread, but the game will actually make you as a player box yourself in. You get power-ups that allow you to move and manipulate pieces of the environment, and you're slowly cutting off more and more branching paths. I like this because each section of the game has its own distinct area of the map you're forced to interact with based on your equipment. So while you have to backtrack, there are natural progression-based blockers that prevent you from going too far backwards. This is done so well because even though you feel like you have complete freedom, Dread has slowly nudged you exactly where you need to be, and sometimes you don't even realize it. While you're traversing this area, you're blasting away dudes with your arm cannon, and the combat feels incredibly good. Your shots are precise and satisfying, your counter is fair and savage. None of your regular bad guys are too hard, but the bosses... Ooh, hell Hell yeah. The boss fights in this game are absolutely sensational. They're the perfect amount of difficulty and involve you really having to pay attention and learn patterns. Trust me, you will die over and over again, but you'll never be sent into that never-ending tilt chamber. By the time you've had a few cracks at the boss, then you're pretty much good to go. You're able to foresee attacks, properly counter, and just kick ass. Speaking of kicking ass, our girl Samus is back and doesn't give a flying fuck about anyone. In all the cutscenes, she's just cool as a cucumber, never showing fear, and does all these cocky moves, being so sleek and smooth in the middle of these cinematic fight scenes that are just placed in the middle of your boss fights. She acts like it's no big deal that she just killed a 3-story tall monster. On another note, the Emmy sections of the map, where Metroid Dread gets its name from, they aren't too bad, but honestly, I feel like they're the weakest part of the game. I had a couple instances where I felt like the Emmys were just camping, waiting for me to move, so it gives the game an excuse for them to chase me. I wouldn't call it an experience ruiner by any stretch of the imagination, just a little nitpick for what was supposed to be this game's hook. Metroid Dread is such a great return to form for Samus. It's a game that shows why Nintendo is some of the best in the business at just making video games that are flat out fun. If this is the standard they're setting for future Metroid games, then sign me up. But please, for the love of God, do not make me wait another 19 years. Atmosphere. Atmosphere is something that surrounds you. No matter where you go, you cannot avoid it. It's always encasing you at every turn, something that there is absolutely no escape from. Why am I sitting here just spewing the Webster's Dictionary definition of atmosphere? It's because Returnal is one of the best examples in all of media of the term atmosphere. This game engages every single sense to fully immerse you in this creepy and eerie setting. The walls always look like they're closing in, and they feel like they're watching over your shoulder. You can hear these distant noises and creakings. And you can even feel the patter of rain on your controller when playing this game. Returnal is the AAA version of a roguelite, and it doesn't disappoint in the slightest. This game marries narrative to the roguelike nature of the game so well. Oftentimes, games just kind of throw narrative out the window and focus on the gameplay. But Returnal says, yeah, we're just gonna do both. The controls and feel of this game are tight. Selim has such a momentum to her character movement. You hit the ground and hit these two little bouncy steps, and then you're just off to the races. You're able to dash and jump the perfect distances. I never feel like I'm physically falling short when it comes to traversal. Gunfights are these bullet hell chaotic messes. You're jumping around, firing off your weapon, trying to dash through projectiles, meleeing for finishing blows, activating your reload for your gun, and the game is just throwing enemies of all shapes and sizes at you. To be honest, if Returnal had no narrative, I think it still would have been my game of the year. The gameplay is just that tight and satisfying. The roguelite progression is awesome. You're saving up currency to buy really good and powerful passives for yourself and playing the balancing act of, do I go one room deeper or should I just jump to the next area? Whether it's in the form of parasites or health boosts, you are always being confronted with trade-off options. Do I sacrifice mobility for damage? Sacrifice melee for a quicker reload? And these trade-offs can brutally mangle some great runs if not managed properly. Now, I did say even without the narrative, this game would be my GOTY, but with the narrative and the atmosphere, it's on another level. In this world, you're consistently looking over your shoulder, tilting your head and trying to understand what exactly you're looking at. Something always feels off. There are moments in this game that are so eerie, I would consistently get goosebumps when entering certain areas. The scenes with the house, these are some of the most unsettling moments I've seen in a game. You aren't too sure if you're in like a dream or real life, and each run is a chance to slowly peel back the mystery. This drip feed of story lends itself to some of the most satisfying buildup and payoffs. In fact, you blend these elements together, and that's what sets up for a phenomenal boss fight, which quickly became my favorite boss fight of all time. You're physically climbing while the story is escalating, the tension is building, the music is swelling, your anxiety is rising, not knowing what you're going to see at the top, and then payoff. Returnal is one of those games I think anyone can appreciate. It can be a little bit of an endurance test with some 90+ minute runs in there, but I think that just made the drive to push on even stronger. I give you my 2021 Game of the Year, Housemarque's Returnal.